Space. Vast, silent, eternal. A black sea stretching in all directions, indifferent to the drama of civilizations being born and dying within it. There is no wind, no sound, just a void that holds secrets. But in this absolute silence, there are echoes, fragments of voices, lost signals, forgotten transmissions traveling for millennia without ever finding an ear to hear them. They are digital ghosts, memories of worlds that may no longer even exist. Among these echoes, one in particular departed from Earth. It was not a message of celebration, nor a record of conquest, but a final plea. A desperate cry cast into the infinite when there was no more hope left for the blue planet. It was the ultimate transmission of an entire species, the last sigh of humanity.
In the year 2140, Earth was no longer the vibrant cradle of life it once had been. The oceans were acidic, the glaciers melted, and entire cities swallowed by the relentless advance of the sea. The air was heavy, poisoned by centuries of human neglect, making the simple act of breathing a challenge in many regions of the planet. The great powers, which once fought over territory and wealth, now fought over the last reserves of potable water and food. War was no longer ideological. It was a raw and desperate struggle for survival. Famine walked hand in hand with violence. Epidemics re-emerged from the shadows, while new diseases spread among weakened bodies. Humanity, which had once dreamed of conquering the stars, could barely sustain itself in its own home. It was as if the earth had grown tired of sheltering its children. Every disaster, every catastrophe was a warning that the end was near. And yet, amidst so much suffering, there were still those who refused to give up. Scientists, engineers, thinkers, people who believed that if the species could not be saved, at least its story could echo through the cosmos. It was in this landscape of desolation that the idea for the final transmission was born. Amid the chaos, a small group of scientists and engineers gathered in secret. They knew the end of humanity was inevitable. There was no more time for miracle solutions, nor resources to reverse the destruction. But there was still something they could do: ensure that the existence of the human species did not vanish into the silence of oblivion. The idea was simple, yet grand: to create a powerful transmission that would gather not only scientific information, but also memories, emotions, voices, and images. A digital portrait of humanity. A testament that, despite its mistakes, humankind had dreamed, created, loved, and fought until the very last moment. They worked frantically for weeks. Archives of music, works of art, historical records, and even simple personal messages were inserted into the transmission. There were declarations of love, children's laughter, fragments of prayers, and even farewells recorded by ordinary people. Every voice carried a piece of what it meant to be human. On the day the signal was finally launched, there was no celebration. There was no audience, no fireworks, just a silent room where tired men and women watched the echo of their species be cast into space, crossing the void like a message in a bottle tossed into an infinite sea. It was Earth's final plea, a desperate cry in search of someone, or something, that might hear it. The message departed from Earth like a thread of hope cast into the abyss. Radio waves pierced the weakened atmosphere, escaping into space like light that would never return. At first, the signal still carried the memory of the blue planet, but as it advanced, it was swallowed by the eternal silence of the stars. no human ear would ever hear it again. With every second, the echo of humanity traveled unimaginable distances. It crossed asteroid belts, passed through nebulae, drifted past distant suns and unknown worlds. It was a traveler without a destination, lonely, condemned to wander forever in search of someone who could understand it. The scientists who sent it knew this. They knew the signal might never be received, that it might be lost amidst the vastness, but they believed anyway. Because deep down, the transmission wasn't just for other worlds. It was also for humanity itself, a way of saying, we existed, and we tried. And so, among billions of stars, Earth's voice continued its journey, a whisper lost in the cosmic ocean, carrying with it laughter, tears, music, and memories of a people who no longer inhabited their home. An electronic ghost, waiting for someone, somewhere, to choose to listen. And then, after wandering for centuries, the signal found a destination. In a distant galaxy, orbiting 3 red suns, there existed an advanced civilization. Beings who did not walk on legs as we do, but glided in bodies made of light and malleable matter. For them, communication was not made of words, but of energy pulses and patterns of color. And yet, something in that transmission caught their attention. Their sensors detected an unusual noise coming from deep space. It wasn't like the pulsations of dying stars, nor like the echo of black holes. It was something different, repetitive, artificial. Intrigued, they isolated the signal. At first, it seemed like mere static, but as they decoded it, patterns emerged. Strange voices, unusual frequencies, fragmented images. They did not yet understand what these shapes and sounds meant, but they understood one thing. This was not natural. It was the mark of a mind, a cry of life from very, very far away. And in that moment, they decided they needed to follow that echo. For hidden within the noise, there was emotion. There was desperation. There was something they had never heard before, yet it felt universal. It was like hearing a heartbeat in the dark. For years, that civilization dedicated itself to studying the strange echo from the depths of space. To them, it was more than scientific curiosity. It was like deciphering the voice of a ghost. First, they learned to separate the signal from the cosmic noise. Then, they began to notice that those vibrations were not random. There was rhythm, repetition, patterns, and intelligence was hidden there. When they managed to convert part of the transmission into images, they saw faces, strange faces, with fragile skin, intense expressions, eyes full of something they had never witnessed before. They saw crowds, wars, oceans, mountains, cities filled with light. At first, they thought it was merely fiction, an artificial creation of some unknown mind. But the more fragments they reconstructed, the more they realized it was real. It was the memory of a people. And then came the sounds, music that pulsed like storms, laughter that echoed like crystals, weeping that transcended all logic. For those beings who had never experienced emotions in the same way as humans, it was nearly incomprehensible, yet fascinating. Slowly, they understood the essence of the signal. It was not an invitation to conquer, nor a threat. It was a request, a plea, the voice of a species that refused to vanish without a trace. Earth's echo had been deciphered, and now they knew they had to follow the coordinates of its origin. The discovery of that transmission changed everything.
For that distant civilization, accustomed to observing the universe with scientific indifference, Earth's echo became an obsession. It was more than just a signal. It was a calling. They decided they could not ignore it. They gathered their brightest minds, built ships capable of crossing interstellar distances, and charted a course to the point of origin, a small solar system marked by a common yellow star lost in one of the spiral arms of the galaxy. The journey would not be short. Years, perhaps centuries of travel. But to them, time was no obstacle. Their species had learned to bend matter, to travel in energetic hibernation, to endure the void as if it were just another ocean to be crossed. As they advanced through deep space, they continued analyzing the signal. The more they studied it, the more they felt that this was not merely a message, it was a testament, the farewell of a people who fought until the end. And amid the silence of the journey, a troubling question arose among them. Could this species still exist? Or are we traveling toward a cosmic grave? The answer could only be found at the source. And so the ships cut through the infinite, guided by the last sigh of humanity.
After a journey that spanned generations, the ships finally emerged at their destination. The small yellow sun shone before them, surrounded by worlds of rock and gas. It was a simple system, but one laden with scars. They passed arid planets, gas giants wreathed in eternal storms, and icy moons that reflected light like mirrors. But as they approached the third planet, they felt something different. There lay the source, Earth. From a distance, it appeared a beautiful world, blue and white, covered in seas and clouds. But as they drew closer, the illusion faded. Murky oceans, deserts that had swallowed ancient cities, sparse forests, and skies choked with residue. The planet was still breathing, but it was a faint breath, like that of someone on the verge of death. On the ruined surfaces, they could see traces of a lost civilization, toppled skyscrapers, metropolises consumed by time, roads leading nowhere. Everything was covered in dust and silence. And above Earth's orbit, debris drifted, shattered satellites, abandoned stations, fragments of metal wandering like skeletons in the void. They were the remains of a people who dared to touch the stars, but never managed to go beyond. There were no signs of intelligent life, no movement, no voice. The planet that had sent that desperate message was now condemned to oblivion. Or so it seemed.
While exploring Earth's orbit, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. A signal. Faint, repetitive, but unmistakable. Following the trail, they found an automated station forgotten by time. It was small, corroded by centuries of radiation and space dust. Its panels were shattered, its structure cracked, but it was still functioning. And from it echoed, incessantly, the message that had once departed from Earth. Fragmented, distorted, but alive. If anyone can hear us, do not let Earth be forgotten. The words echoed in a language unknown to those beings, but the emotion they carried transcended the barriers of translation. There was pain, but also hope. There was fear, but also a desperate plea for human existence not to be erased like ashes in the wind. For the civilization that had heard the call, that moment was sacred. They did not find the humans they had expected, nor a society to meet. They found only a lone voice, repeated by a machine that refused to fall silent. It was like finding a lighthouse still lit in an abandoned world,
a sign that though the species had vanished, its memory still persisted. Earth was dead, but its echo lived on.
That civilization did not find men and women to shake hands with, nor bustling cities to explore. They found only ruins, silence, and an echo. But for them, that was enough, for in that fragile signal, they understood something they had never grasped before, the essence of what it meant to exist. Humanity had left its final mark not in monuments, nor in material conquests, but in a message, a plea not to be forgotten, a testament that told the universe, we were here, we loved, we dreamed, we suffered, and until the end, we fought. And so Earth became a legend, a tale told among the stars, passed down through generations of that civilization who had once heard its voice, not merely as a cautionary tale, but as a symbol. For some, it was a story of warning, a reminder that even the greatest species can fall to their own arrogance. For others, it was a story of hope, proving that even in the deepest despair, there is still courage to cry out into the infinite. And so the human echo lived on, not in bodies, not in cities, but in the memory of other worlds. Humanity did not vanish completely. It transformed into myth, into legend, into eternity. A people who faded away, but who could never be forgotten.